everyone. Yeah, you like that, right? Probably goes without saying, this is going to be a really fun movie to talk about tonight. I'm Perri Nemiroff with Collider, and I've got some of the team behind Divinity with me. We have writer-director EDDIE ALCAZAR. Executive producer Steven Soderbergh. We have stars Bella Thorne. And Aero Theatre. And also I got editor Steve Forner with us. Congratulations on your movie. This one excites me to no end. Steven, I'm going to ask you my first question here, because I love how this movie happened. I know the two of you collaborated on Perfect before this one, so what was it about that movie or that experience that made you say to yourself, I absolutely must finance Eddie's next movie, even if I know nothing about it?
Well, an actor that I worked with on The Girlfriend Experience, Chris Santos, was on the set of Eddie's film Perfect, and texted me and said, I'm really intrigued by what's going on here. I think you should meet this guy. So I trusted Chris, so we went and had lunch and started talking about that film. And then sometime in 2020, I can't remember the exact month, but it was during, lockdown. I reached out to him and just said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I got a couple things. And I said, well, if you can do something for X equaling a small amount of money, let's do it. And so he said, okay, I think I have something I can do for that. And I never read it. I never asked to see the script. I just said, if you can hit that number, you can do whatever you want, which he did. So it's the best kind of producing. That's where you're there just to kind of facilitate and support. And so, it's fun to see it like this and wonder, should you only be allowed to see this at midnight? Because when I was growing up, this was the kind of film you would wait in line for an hour on a Friday or a Saturday night to go see. And the reason that's crucial to sort of thinking about this is how in your mind you're framing up what you're about to see in a midnight movie. Your expectation is that, and your hope is that it will be crazy. Like that's why you're going midnight with a bunch of really activated film goers to see something crazy. And so, he did that.
Very much so. Steven and Eddie, a question for both of you, and it's a rather straightforward question, but I do think it's an important thing to highlight, and I know it's something that's important to both of you. Why do you think filmmakers should seek out new ways to make movies? Why not just stick to the typical techniques, because that's what we know works?
Well, I think it's a lot of fun to explore, right? I mean, the amazing thing about the freedom about this film, right? There was really nothing to read, right? Because I storyboarded most of it at first. And so that gave me a lot of the ideas. I went through just images to spark different ideas and trying to figure out all right, what is this film? I don't think I would have gotten that chance if Steven didn't give me that much control of this or freedom. But it felt more natural to me. I think it was something that became a bit more clear to the actors and the collaborators as I went through it, because I would put up all the boards on the office wall and walk them through the entire film, from beginning to end, at least the foundation, because I left this open for new ideas to sprout. And I was trying to figure out how to be smart about the money, but at the same time, if I have better ideas, not restrict myself. And we had I think total of 7 different shoots on this, and there was a big chunk at the beginning, and then it just kept on evolving from there. So, but I guess to answer your question, I think it connects to maybe the individual and how maybe sometimes there are better ways, but you won't find them until you explore and experiment.
have a million follow-up questions to what you just said. First, because you brought up the storyboard part. I mean, storyboarding is a very typical part of the process here, but I know you heavily use storyboards when you were working with your actors. Can you maybe go into detail on how that worked here?
Well, speaking of my storyboard artists, I do really rough thumbnails that are hard to read, but then have a professional that actually makes them legible to everyone. But I guess once I have a storyboard and I have an actor that I love and I bring them in and they see what we're doing, then it becomes easier to like write dialogue based on the collaboration and their input, what they want to express as an actor. So I did that for everyone. I think Bella came in a little bit later, so she saw my rough. I didn't have money to like pay the good storyboard artist, so you saw my rough drawings. And I think even on set, we were just, kind of creating the dialogue, right? I mean, we were just kind of jumping off the flow was there.
Yeah, and I honestly never worked with a director that was telling the story mainly through storyboards. That was definitely a first for me as well, but I think storyboards are not, like, you just really know how to sell your vision and even though you didn't have a script and where to be and what time to be there, it was so beautiful the way that you created it. And as an actor, I've been acting since I was 8, and I'm 26 now. And so I've been doing this like a good main portion of my life, and I've just never worked with a director who, I guess, had such a vision that it couldn't be put into script format. It couldn't be just put into here it is. And that was so intriguing for me. So shitty storyboards, handmade or not, you got me.
Again, many follow-up questions. Bella and Mike, given how this all went down, what would you say is like the biggest burning question you had for Eddie after your first pitch session with him? What did you need an answer on in order to, wrap your head around what this movie was going to be?
Well, I think the main question was why. Is, as an actor, you're always rooted in the question of why, because why tells you every little bit of what you're doing, from the way that you would pick up a cup, to the way that you would reference a friend, to the way that honestly you would do anything, the way you dress, everything about you. And so when Eddie and I were kind of going back and forth and whatnot, because this character was so outer worldly in a way of not really having a definition, that was one, really exciting as an actor, but also two, very scary as well, because I think sometimes being raised so long in acting, you're used to becoming a tool. You ask me to do this, so I do this for you. You want this, I give you this. What would you like now? I'll do this. And this was, a first time in a long time that someone was really like, okay, but now we're gonna do this together. We're going to make this tool together, and that is really going to be the beauty about this process. And we found it, yeah. After talking, getting into wardrobe, on set and whatnot, like we kind of just wrote the dialogue and stuff on the spot, just kind of feeling with what we were looking at, because I'm not inside Eddie's brain. I didn't know what this was gonna look like turning out on screen, so it's kind of just me showing up in a cream colored bodysuit. It's like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, it was just like Bella said, it was exciting for me because I'm used to the audibles. Let's just go. The one thing with him is I had to accept being free and just going, wow, this guy's mine. I want to get in there. I want to be in there. What are you thinking? But seeing the storyboards, like you guys were talking about, it was such a different kind of film to be on. Going, okay, you're gonna have to trust and then just go with it and believe in you, and I did. But when I saw the storyboard, you see the movie, and when you were explaining to me that day, because he came over and we talked about it, and then I went to the office and saw the storyboard, and I'm seeing me, and it's just like, okay, I see the whole thing. but still get on set and he'd just flip it on you. Oh, you gotta be good. You gotta be really good. So you pick them up and you toss them. And it was so fun. It was, you're a talent kid. You really are. You're unique.
Another question for both of you. Based on something that I read that Eddie had said about working with actors, and I love this idea. He said, I always create a role for an actor in a way that I feel could help them creatively express what they want to. So can you each pinpoint a time on set when he did something with your character that helped make that character something that was creatively fulfilling for you?
I think for me it was when, because I was Rip, I was the bigger brother, I was the stronger brother. And then to be broken down and see my brother, who was always leading me, and I was just a strong guy, and I had to take charge and break down in that moment, like this isn't my role. It was cool for me as an actor to go there, and we got to play with that so much, and I love how it came out. I appreciate it, and then I agree. He sets you up to win, and that's a cool thing. And then just giving him the trust to go, okay, I trust you, man. I'll follow.
Really one of the best qualities to have in a leader on set, setting up everybody around you to win. I hope that more people out there take note of the importance of that.
Yeah, and I think just having that instilled within the crew and the other cast. I know Dorf was also pretty prominent in that scene, helping Mike and myself, find it. So it was good to have that mindset all around.
How about for you, Bella? Anything specific with your character that Eddie helped, I guess, fine-tune, especially to what you were interested in doing with her?
I don't think there was a specific moment. The whole thing was very fine-tuned. Eddie and I had actually met on a completely different project before discussing Divinity and whatnot. And I had loved Vandal, which was a project that he had just premiered. I went to the premiere of it. We really got along about being, from Cuban descent and whatnot, and our families, and then kind of just hit it off. And yeah, it was so sweet that the entire time he was really like, what do you want to do with her? Like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Like, let's do this together and whatnot, because I'd really not totally experienced that from a director. So honestly, I can't really pinpoint one moment in time, because it was kind of the entire time. He was so open to kind of discussing her background, and when you're discussing background about a character that is so three-dimensional, and I mean three-dimensional as in just outworldly in a whole nother way. Like there's so many things you can talk about from her background and experience. So yeah, we kind of just like hit the ball rolling on that.
Can you share anything about her background? Something that we don't see on screen in the final movie, but maybe we could feel informed in her performance?
Oh boy. Well, it's something that Eddie and I, that I had just kind of reserved for myself, I would say, as a feeling, was just being at that spot in time. Literally the whole world is out there and dying. Most of them are dead. And you and a few of you are the only ones left alive, and then it is really your job to carry that pressure and whatnot, and to take that, that, what is it called? God, the thing that lights on fire, and it's...
Torch.
Thank you, the torch. To take that torch and lead it in that way, and have so much pressure of civilization, living, that was something I kind of had to internally find, that I think was kind of built into her growing up, and I just tried to think about that all the time. Between dialogue, while I was speaking dialogue, I kept thinking just about the pressure. The pressure is, it is this, and if you don't get this right, if you don't lead these people to the right area, this is your fault, and it is all on you. And that I think was really nice. It's like a background thought.
do you feel like when you're watching it? Also, because you brought up Vandal, if anyone out there has not seen Eddie's short, it's all over the internet, and I highly recommend checking it out. Steven, coming your way now, is it safe to assume that given everything about the process of this film was unique, that the editor-director collaboration was one of a kind as well?
Of course, I mean, if it wasn't unique, then it would just be the basic, boring stuff, right? It has to be different to make something different like this. But we had a lot of collaboration with other editors that came in and helped out just with ideas and things like that. But I think most importantly, it was the non-stop work at it till we felt like it was something we wanted to see kind of vibe, whether it was me saying I can't do this anymore multiple times and getting back in it, going back for 6 days a week, 15 hours a day until we got it right. I think that's, that's what it takes to make it right. And it's definitely a collaborative effort with Eddie, with everyone, with all the visual effects teams that were involved to get it right. And music and sound was like super crucial to it, I think, as well. So he brings a lot of talented people together and pushes them beyond the limits that they know they're capable of, and I think that's what helps make something like this.
Can you give us an example of a specific scene where you had one of those moments where you're like I can't do it anymore, I need a break, but then you guys found the creative solution that you needed, and now we can see that in the finished cut?
It's tricky. It's like, I feel like we went through with the structure. I think there was a point when the whole film was assembled and we started just like taking scenes and moving them around, and because everything was very modular at a certain point. I know it feels like it's very intentional now, but like at one point everything just kind of like, we just started moving scenes around, and I think that was the biggest challenge of like really figuring out the flow and the structure of it so that it wasn't confusing or misleading in a different direction that he didn't want. And I think that was the bigger, broader thing. But yeah, specifically with scenes, I mean, they're all difficult, It's always difficult, no matter whether it's an easy scene or not. It's difficult.
You were editing for about a year.
It was
pretty much a year straight.
It was a year.
On and off, between the shoots, but it
I was
was
talking about that, I think you said we were editing just a couple days ago.
That's true.
But you definitely knew you wanted at some point in the term of starting the movie and ending the movie. Because I remember when we had talked about this a little bit further before we started filming, you were like, no, this scene ends the movie 100%. It does. It's this afterlife moment of this like rebirth of civilization. And yeah, I remember you talking kind of about the order of things, how they would play, and seeing it up on screen. It is. Yeah,
Well, that was
you
also
wanted.
towards, I think that was the last shoot before, right? Like, I think that was the last shoot before we locked it, was yours. And that idea came to me pretty, towards the end, like this final, like, I guess, rebirth.
Like all of them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we only got the answer because we went through all these other ideas. I feel like my head's a bit like a funnel, and it's just constantly, playing with ideas until time runs out, right? And then I have to choose, and I'm like, all right, this is the best one because I've thought it through and it kind of makes sense. But a lot of this is instinctually driven, right? It's hard to define why you make certain decisions for some of these things.
My brain doesn't operate that way, that's why I sit here and you're over there. I want to go back to the shooting schedule on this again, the idea of filming in those 7 blocks and then using the time in between to assess what you got and then make decisions based on things you discover. Can you give us maybe a specific example of something you discovered during one of those breaks that changed what you did going
It was
forward?
a constant discovery, I think. I mean, that's why I feel just rethinking film and how you make them, and how you allow for this stuff to constantly just jump at you. That's what I was hoping to do with this. Just create a foundation where everybody could contribute their ideas, we could have a lot of conversations, and if somebody had a good idea, that it still would be possible to execute, right? That's usually not the way it works, right? And it's scary to think about the other way, right? Like for me, if I was to think about just shooting this all at once and then I'm stuck with this footage, and I have to, you know, make something of it and edit, that's tricky, at least from my mind to comprehend. So we let it go, you know, and it just ultimately comes down, not really a time limit, because we didn't really have necessarily a time limit, but more financial limit, you know.
Just every film like that. As wonderful as all these unique production elements are, I feel like that's always the ceiling that everybody has to hit or come to terms with eventually. Steven, I'll ask you this question, just given you have an extensive filmography and you've done so much. Is there anything specific about the way that Divinity was made that you think more films should adopt and try that could make their movie better, even if the entire process isn't exactly like this film was made?
It's hard to say. I mean, this was the way this film had to be made. And it's not a process that any normal company that finances movies is gonna sign off on. And so, you know, I trusted Eddie, but I also trusted the fact that I kept seeing things and it kept getting better. It would change. It would sometimes very significantly, but it would be better. So I wasn't worried, and I thought, wow, this is very fluid, and we would talk occasionally. I didn't have a whole lot to contribute other than to say, keep going. But I don't think, the freedom aspect of it is something that, and the belief, the faith in the filmmaker is something that I think you can export to another kind of film. But this exact process, I don't think is one that you can point to and say, oh, well, everybody should work like that. Now, that being said, just by chance, the first season of The Nick, we had a break over the holidays where we'd shot about 85% of the first season. And I put together as quickly as I could everything that we had with slugs, where the scenes that we hadn't shot would go, and the brain trust looked at the whole thing. And we did a fair amount of rewriting, recalibrating, and reshoots that we added into the last 3 weeks of shooting that really improved the show so much that in season 2, we built in that break at exactly the same point in order to have that freedom to kind of see most of it and then make adjustments. I do think that's something that you can export, and that is worth people thinking about, which is, look, it's really hard on something larger than Divinity to get everybody back. Mostly because actors have gone off to do other things. But it's really helpful to kind of see the whole thing sort of in its final shape, because then you can really, you know, assess if you have a problem and get out there and integrate the solutions into the last round of shooting. So that's something I would encourage people to do. But this benefited from the fact that they had very little money, so time was actually not the factor that it would be on a normal project. And Eddie's very good at convincing people to do things. I mean, shockingly so. But again, I think that was this. You know, if there were another project, Eddie and I talked about what he wants to do next, and I have no doubt if you gave him a finished script that he thought was amazing, you know, that he would do everything he could to, you know, shoot that and execute it in a way that's more aligned with how things are normally done, leaving some amount of space for it to evolve on the fly.
So given you just brought up what Eddie could be doing next, Bella and Mike, I'll throw this one to you. What one piece of advice would you give to another actor who is going to collaborate with Eddie down the line in order to make the most of that experience?
What a funny question. Any advice?
Yeah, just trust him. Trust him. That's it. That's the main thing. I think the quicker I did, the more fun it was, because it is a little, like you said, a little off with the storyboards in his mind. But as soon as I gave in, man, it was a love relationship. So I would just say that and trust him. You got a talent here. That's one question I want to ask you later. Is like, you get these talents like this. This is a guy that's going to explode in the industry. Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to go after that. I would say I definitely agree. Yeah, just throw yourself into it, and to trust the process. We don't have enough directors that want to be so rebellious in this way, and to do what's different and to do what hasn't been done. So if you get the chance to work with Eddie, then you better fucking do it.
Well, I would imagine, look, the ideal situation is you have one person that you need to please. You know, if you're aligned with Eddie, there's gonna be nobody coming back later. He's not gonna say, yeah, you know, somebody saw footage, they're not happy, we've gotta do it differently. You have one person to please, and there's a real freedom in that, you know what I mean? And so.
But that freedom goes back to you, because what director has that kind of support? Like, you've given
Well,
Eddie to do what he's done and to be creative and to be so free and to try over a long period of time. You said it yourself, like, you know, it's a very different way to make a movie. You did that.
Well, that's because that's how I was mentored by people who had more experience than I did. My producers that I worked with from the very beginning of my career, I was protected, I was trusted, and you can't direct a movie on your knees. Like you have to be in a space in which you're open to the thing that you're waiting to arrive. And so fear is not gonna help you get there. Panic has never solved anything in the history of the world. So it's all about creating a sort of a space where there's calm and there's conversation, but it's ultimately the results speak for themselves. This summer is a really good example of that. You have two filmmakers who came up out of the independent world, who were given a number, both of them, Chris and Greta. They were told, you hit this number, you can do what you want. And they went and did what they wanted, and we had a great summer for moviegoers. And so I hope that's the lesson that's taken from those two monster successes. I'm not convinced that it will be the lesson that's taken, but that's the goal. At least that was the goal of Section 8 20 years ago, which was to fuse independent filmmakers with mainstream material, but give them the freedom to transform mainstream material into something specific. So I just think, you know, again, within a certain box size, that's how you get the best result, is by letting the filmmaker chase the thing that they have in their mind.
Beautiful description. Make a big difference in this industry. I have so many things I still need to hit on. Mike, I'm going to go to you because I don't think we spoke about Steven's work in this movie nearly enough. Can you maybe tell me something that he did on this set that wowed you and, I don't know, maybe made you think to yourself, I want to try that as an actor one day?
It was, just working with him was cool. And how Eddie set up, just him and me and Steve were just working together and going off and playing with it and having fun. Again, it goes back to, you know, trust in him as well. I mean, he's a great actor, Steven. So it was pretty simple, you know, the process, like you were saying. After you trust him, after you know that that's the only one you got to appease, it's pretty cool. And then Steven was easy to work with for me, so.
That's not a role that works unless you have someone in it that gives 110%. He certainly does. I'll add on that with I love creature design work so much. I'm endlessly fascinated by it. Can you tell us a little bit about pinpointing that specific design when someone has too much divinity in their system?
Yeah, no, I think we worked with a lot of amazing, talented prosthetic, artists, right? And Miles Tevis was the one who created the sixth stage of him when he's in the chair, right? Like struggling. That was Doug Frushi, by the way. That was like a double for Dorf. He had that buff. But Miles Tevis is like a legend. He did Legend. He did the devil in Legend, if you remember that. So I was like, I'm really just amazed with all the people that helped on this film. I think from the sound design, Mark Mangini, editors, like all these people don't have to do this type of film because number one, it's not like you're getting crazy amounts of money for it. It's going to be really tough. But that's how these things get made, right? The belief, I think the trust, not just in me, but I trust all of them. I let them do their thing. I try to let them creatively express what they want to do just naturally. So you have to really find the specific people that are already kind of in that lane and just let them do their thing. So that trickles down from the trust he gives me, I give, to a lot of the folks that I work with. And that's that's amazing, about that. But as far as like more of the prosthetics, yeah, we had, I guess you could call it also 7 different stages of applications, for Dorf as he evolved into like a muscle monster. At the very end, the idea was like his muscles just got so big in his face, that it would just consume his features. And then the stop motion was like the final bit of it.
All right, I'll have to let you guys go. I could talk about your movie all day long. There's so many fascinating components here, but I'll talk about the Metascope last. I'll pose this to you, Eddie, and also Steven. First, can you maybe pinpoint figuring out the right moments in the movie to use the Metascope technique, where it's not just using it to use it, but it's supporting the story? And then, Steven, does it change the edit process for you when you're working with live action and stop motion material?
So Metascope was something that I came up with Vandal, and Steve worked on that together as well. And so it was a huge process of discovery because we didn't really know how to. Well, the whole concept was we wanted to, as you get closer to an object, it become more real or a character, right? And in order to do that, we had to implement stop motion, we had to implement LED walls, like in front of the actors or behind the actors. And we used like 3 different scales. So everything had to, is done in 3 different scales. 1/87 scale for all the miniatures, right? Like that you have the extra wide for. The stop motion is 1/8 scale, and then you have the close-ups, which are, just little live actors themselves. So, crazy thing, the crazy thing about it is just like the amount of work that goes into creating 3 different scales of everything of your sets. And then we had to figure out how to really cut it, right? Like how would it flow? And I know we did storyboards as well, right? And then
it started with storyboards and very rudimentary sound design, and that went to the animators, stop motion people, and then they would kind of evolve things from the storyboards, and then we'd get back and we'd cut it, we'd figure out timings. Eddie and I sat and did like a whole Metascope pass and finding the close-ups where the close-ups were going to be, because we couldn't shoot the whole thing on Metascope in live action. We had to pick those moments, and so we just kind of.
The rehearsals helped a lot too.
Yeah,
so we did rehearsals with all of that.
Yeah, he shot rehearsals, so there was a lot of temping and a lot of layering before the shooting even started, because it was just, once we had it, it was like, there was one take only kind of situation, or not one take, but one pass, one shoot day.
Yeah.
And yeah, then once we got it in, it was awesome, but then we had to go back again and refine it because we get the visual effects in, and there's ideas that would come from visual effects, and all of a sudden you see this like new Star World and sky and things that you didn't see in the original stop motion plates that opened up more ideas, and then we just dove into that.
And this film, we have about 500 visual effects shots, I think.
At least, yeah.
So that's like supposed to be impossible. But on paper, I think that's another thing. We had so many things that you give to any producer, right? To shoot on film, to shoot at this crazy mansion in Joshua Tree, with these prosthetics, with stop motion battle. Like, that really supposed to make sense, you know? But that's what motivated all of us to see if it could be possible, I think. And if you get a good group of people that also believe it can happen, this is what happens.
Well, I think everybody wants to know what your workout regimen is.
I'm trying to train up Mike these days. Yeah. No.
Bring it.
It's been wild. I mean, it is, you know, in a way I try to thrive off of all the stress that it builds. But I think, you know, accomplishing something like this is really amazing, and it's fulfilling, right? So you try to like just be at peace, you know? You try not to let things like sway you too much and like get bigger than.
Are you happy? Do you like the film project?
I'm very happy to have you in.
No, I'm good.
Hey, I just want to know if Rick really did die. Pretty part two.
I'll squeeze in one last question, because something you just said made me think of what I do ask often. It's probably over sentimental and a little bit of a big question, but I get really excited when I see really bold, unique movies like this. So is there any filmmaking goal you've had that now feels more within reach because a movie like Divinity can exist?
Well, yeah, I continue to use the same crew and like advanced techniques, you know, I think throughout most of my career, and I would love to keep on doing that, right? Because I'm discovering new things constantly, and I'm fleshing them out a little bit more each time. I mean, would love to shoot something in color with Metascope, which hasn't happened, you know, and yeah, just refining, you know, just keep on refining these ideas.
I'm rooting for it. Anything you want, I want to see it. I will sit and watch it. I have a feeling everyone here will too. Congratulations on doing it. So make sure you spread the word so we get more unique movies like this one.